The text was already sent. Elena Rossi stared at her phone screen, her stomach dropping like an elevator with cut cables. The little delivered notification mocked her from beneath the photo, a photo that was supposed to go to her best friend Maya for approval, not to whoever Mr. DeLuca was in her contacts. She zoomed in on the image with shaking fingers. There she was, in her black lace bralette and the confident smirk she'd practiced 12 times in the mirror. The lighting was perfect. The angle was flawless. And it was now in the hands of a complete stranger. "No, no, no, no," she whispered, her voice rising with each repetition. But let's rewind. Because 20 minutes earlier, Elena Rossi had been having the worst week of her 26 years on this planet. It started when her ex-boyfriend Jake posted a photo on social media, him and his new girlfriend at some rooftop bar, looking annoyingly happy. The same girlfriend he'd sworn was just a coworker 3 months ago when Elena caught them having coffee together. Elena had been lying on her worn couch in her Brooklyn studio apartment, still in her waitress uniform from the cafe, eating ice cream straight from the container while her cat Milo judged her from the windowsill. "He moved on in like 5 seconds," she muttered to Milo, who yawned in response. Her best friend, Sophia, had texted, "Girl, post something hot. Show him what he's missing. You're a whole snack and he's out here eating garbage." Elena had laughed, but the idea stuck. Not to actually send it to Jake, she had some dignity left, but maybe just to prove to herself that she still had it. That breakup weight she'd been worried about? She'd actually lost 5 pounds from stress and forgetting to eat. Silver linings. So she'd changed into the black lace bralette she bought on sale and never wore, let her dark hair fall in waves over her shoulders, and angled her phone just right. The photo was tasteful, confident, a little dangerous. She looked like someone who definitely had her life together and wasn't eating cookie dough for dinner 3 nights a week. She typed a message to Maya. "Be honest. Too much? Or just enough to make me feel like I'm winning at life?" Except she didn't send it to Maya. Her phone had auto-corrected to M. DeLuca, a contact she didn't even remember adding. Probably from some work thing. Or maybe when she'd grabbed the wrong phone at the cafe last month during the lunch rush. The message delivered at 9:47 p.m. on a Friday night. Elena's first instinct was to unsend it, but her phone was 2 generations old and that feature didn't exist in her digital universe. Her second instinct was to throw her phone into the Hudson River and start a new life in Canada. Instead, she did what any panicking 26-year-old would do. She sent 7 follow-up messages in rapid succession. "Oh my God. Wrong person. I am so sorry. Please delete that. This is so embarrassing. I meant to send that to my friend. Please pretend you never saw that, I'm begging you." Then she waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Nothing. Maybe they were asleep. Maybe they'd already deleted it. Maybe they were a decent human being who understood accidents happen. Elena exhaled slowly, setting her phone face down on the coffee table. "It's fine," she told Milo, who had moved to the back of the couch and was aggressively grooming himself. "They probably don't even care. It's just a photo. People send way worse things by accident." Her phone buzzed. She grabbed it so fast she nearly dropped it. The response was short, just 3 words. "Interesting choice of lighting." Elena's blood turned to ice water. Across the city, in a sleek Manhattan penthouse, Matteo DeLuca set his phone down on the mahogany table and returned his attention to the 4 men sitting across from him. The meeting had been tense, a discussion about territory disputes, shipment routes, and the kind of business that never appeared on tax returns. These men represented interests from Boston, interests that had been pushing boundaries lately. When his phone had lit up with a notification, Matteo had planned to ignore it. But Vince, his right-hand man standing by the door, had caught his eye and given the slightest nod, the signal they used when something required immediate attention. Matteo had glanced at the screen. For the first time in 3 years, a genuine smile had threatened to break through his carefully maintained expression. The photo was unexpected. A beautiful woman, dark hair, confident eyes, in black lace that left just enough to the imagination. But it was the message that followed 7 panicked texts in a row that had truly captured his attention. The Boston crew had noticed his distraction. "Something amusing, DeLuca?" one of them asked, an edge in his voice. Matteo had locked his phone and slid it into his pocket, his face returning to its usual unreadable mask. "Just business. Nothing that concerns you." But now, with the meeting concluded and the men gone, Matteo pulled out his phone again. Vince approached, curiosity evident despite his professionally neutral expression. "Problem, boss?" "No," Matteo said slowly, studying the photo again. "The opposite, actually." He forwarded the image to Vince, just the photo, not the messages. Vince's eyebrows rose slightly, which for him was equivalent to shocked speechlessness. "Should I be concerned about a security breach?" "Find out who she is," Matteo said, his tone casual but his interest anything but. "I want a full background by morning. Where she works, where she lives, who she associates with, everything." "You think it's a setup?" Vince asked, immediately shifting into protection mode. Matteo considered this. In his world, beautiful women didn't accidentally send provocative photos. They were weapons, carefully aimed by rivals or ambitious climbers looking to get close to power. But those 7 panicked follow-up messages, the raw, unfiltered terror in them, that felt real. "I don't think so," Matteo said finally. "But I've been wrong before. Check her out." Vince nodded and left the room, already making calls. Matteo sat back in his leather chair, looking out at the glittering Manhattan skyline. He'd been in this business for 15 years, since he was 20 and his father handed him the family legacy along with all its blood and complications. In that time, he'd seen every play in the book: seduction attempts, blackmail, betrayal disguised as loyalty. He'd learned to trust no one fully and to keep his heart locked away somewhere even he couldn't always find it. But something about this woman's panicked apologies felt different, genuine, human in a way his world rarely was anymore. He typed his response carefully. "Interesting choice of lighting." Let her wonder. Let her worry. If this was a game, she'd make her next move. If it was truly an accident, well, accidents could be interesting too. His phone buzzed again almost immediately. "I'm really sorry, Mr. DeLuca. I don't even know how I got your number. Please just delete the photo. I promise this won't happen again. Mr. DeLuca." So she at least knew his name, even if she claimed not to know how she'd gotten his contact information. Matteo allowed himself a small smile. This was either the worst assassination attempt in history or the most entertaining accident he'd witnessed in years. Either way, he intended to find out which. Elena didn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she imagined worst-case scenarios. What if M. DeLuca was her landlord's creepy nephew? What if they worked for her dad's construction company and would tell everyone? What if they were a lawyer who'd somehow sue her for for what, she wasn't sure, but rich people sued for everything, right? By 3 a.m., she'd convinced herself that M. DeLuca was probably just some random person who'd think she was weird and move on with their life. By 6 a.m., when her alarm went off for her opening shift at Café Benedetto, she'd almost convinced herself the whole thing was a bad dream. The café was a small Italian place in Brooklyn, family-owned for 3 generations, with the best espresso in the neighborhood and a loyal crowd of regulars. Elena had worked there for 2 years, and she loved it despite the early hours and the occasional rude customer. "You look like death," Sophia announced when she arrived for her shift an hour later. Sophia was Elena's best friend and co-worker, with bright red hair, 6 piercings, and the confidence Elena wished she could bottle and sell. "Thanks. I didn't sleep." "Hot date keep you up?" Sophia waggled her eyebrows. "The opposite. I accidentally sent a sexy photo to a wrong number, and now I'm spiraling." Sophia's eyes went wide. "You did what? Show me!" "Absolutely not. Elena Marie Rossi, you show me right now or I'm putting decaf in Mr. Peterson's order and blaming you." Elena groaned but pulled out her phone. showing Sophia the conversation. Sophia's expression went from amused to concerned. Wait. M. DeLuca, as in DeLuca? What do you mean, as in DeLuca? Do you know this person? Sophia grabbed Elena's arm, pulling her into the back room away from customers. Please tell me you don't know who Matteo DeLuca is. I literally just said I don't know who this is. Elena. Sophia's voice dropped to a whisper. Matteo DeLuca owns half of Brooklyn. Real estate, restaurants, import-export businesses. My cousin's boyfriend's brother works security at one of his properties and says, she lowered her voice even more, he's connected. Like, mafia connected. The room tilted slightly. You're joking. I wish I was. He's like, untouchable. Dangerous. Nobody messes with him. Elena felt her breakfast threatening to make a reappearance. So I accidentally sent a sexy photo to a literal crime boss. It looks that way, yeah. I'm going to die. I'm actually going to die. They're going to find me in the Hudson River and my mom will have to identify my body and breathe. Sophia grabbed her shoulders. Look, he responded, right? And he didn't threaten you. That's good. Maybe he thought it was funny? Elena pulled up the message again. Interesting choice of lighting. That doesn't sound angry, Sophia offered. That sounds, I don't know, almost amused? Or it's what mob bosses say before they make you disappear. You watch too many movies. Before Elena could respond, the bell above the cafe door chimed. Through the window in the door, she could see their manager Marco frantically gesturing for them to come back to the front. They rushed out to find the morning rush in full swing, except everyone had gone quiet. A man in an expensive charcoal suit stood at the counter. He was tall, probably mid-30s, with dark hair slicked back and a face that looked like it had been carved from marble. Everything about him screamed money and danger in equal measure. I'm looking for Elena Rossi, he said, his voice smooth and professional. Elena's feet rooted to the floor. Sophia subtly pushed her forward. That's me, Elena managed, her voice barely above a whisper. The man reached into his jacket. Elena's heart stopped and pulled out a business card. Mr. DeLuca requests your presence this evening. 7 p.m. The address is on the card. He placed it on the counter between them. A car will be sent to your residence at 6:45. What? Why? The man's expression didn't change. I don't ask questions. Miss Rossi. I deliver messages. 7 p.m. I suggest you don't be late. Then he turned and walked out, leaving absolute silence in his wake. Elena stared at the card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering. DeLuca Enterprises with an address in Manhattan. Well, Sophia whispered beside her, at least you'll die in a nice suit. Elena would have laughed if she wasn't absolutely terrified. The rest of Elena's shift passed in a blur of anxiety and dropped plates one dropped plate. But it felt like a metaphor for her entire life falling apart. Every customer who walked through the door made her jump. Every time her phone buzzed, she expected it to be a threat or a ransom demand or something equally terrifying. By 2 p.m., when her shift ended, she'd made exactly 3 decisions. 1. She was definitely going to this meeting because ignoring a mafia boss seemed like a worse idea than facing him. 2. She was telling at least 3 people where she'd be, so if she disappeared, someone would know to call the police. 3. She was wearing her most conservative outfit because clearly her current approach to clothing choices was getting her in trouble. You should wear something nice, Sophia argued, as they walked to the subway together. If you're going out, go out looking good. I'm not going out. I'm potentially walking into a murder scene. Same dress code, honestly. Elena made it home by 3 p.m., which gave her 4 hours to completely spiral. She called her older sister, Maria, who lived in New Jersey with her husband and 2 kids. So, let me get this straight, Maria said after Elena explained the situation. You accidentally sent a sexy photo to the mob, and now you're meeting him for what, exactly? I have no idea. Maybe to apologize in person before he kills me? Elena, I love you. But your life is literally a romantic comedy mixed with a crime thriller. This isn't funny. It's a little funny. Look, text me the address and check in every 30 minutes. And for the love of God, don't drink anything he gives you until you see him drink it first. At 6 p.m., Elena stood in front of her closet in her underwear, having tried on and rejected 8 different outfits. Too casual, too formal, too much like she was trying too hard. Not enough like she took this seriously. She finally settled on black pants, a cream silk blouse, and the blazer she'd bought for job interviews but never wore because it made her feel like she was playing dress-up in adult clothes. Her hair went up in a neat bun, minimal makeup, small earrings. She looked like someone who definitely hadn't sent a sexy photo by accident because she was clearly a responsible, put-together adult. The lie helped, even if she didn't believe it. At 6:43, her phone buzzed. Car is downstairs. V. Elena grabbed her purse, gave Milo one last pat, and headed down to the street. The car was exactly what she expected. A sleek black SUV with tinted windows that screamed, "Nothing illegal is happening here. Please don't look too closely." The driver opened the back door. He was the same man from the cafe, still in his suit, still expressionless. "Miss Rossi." "Hi. Are you V?" "Vince," he corrected, gesturing to the car. "Shall we?" Elena climbed in, her heart pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. The interior was all black leather and tinted windows. As they pulled into traffic, Elena realized she had no idea if she was being taken to a meeting or being kidnapped. "So," she said, trying to keep her voice steady, "do you do this often? Pick up terrified women for your boss?" Vince's eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. "First time for this particular scenario, actually." "That's not reassuring." "Wasn't meant to be reassuring, Miss Rossi. It was meant to be honest." They drove in silence through Brooklyn, across the bridge into Manhattan, and up through streets that got progressively fancier until they pulled up to a residential tower that looked like it cost more than Elena would make in 5 lifetimes. Vince opened her door. "Penthouse. He's expecting you." Elena stepped out onto the sidewalk, looking up at the building that seemed to stretch into the clouds. "Any advice?" she asked Vince, only half joking. He considered this. "Don't lie to him. He respects honesty. And if I'm honest and he doesn't like what I say, then it was nice knowing you, Miss Rossi." He was definitely joking. Probably. Elena walked into the lobby, gave her name to the doorman who was clearly expecting her, and stepped into an elevator with mirrors on all sides. She watched her reflection multiply into infinity, an army of nervous Elenas, all wondering how they'd ended up here. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse, and there, standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows with his back to her, was Matteo De Luca. Matteo had been called many things in his 35 years. Ruthless, calculating, cold, dangerous, untouchable. No one had ever called him curious. Curiosity was a weakness in his world, a crack that enemies could exploit. Yet here he was, curious about a waitress who'd accidentally sent him a photo. When Vince had delivered his report that morning, it had been disappointingly mundane. Elena Marie Rossi, 26, born and raised in Brooklyn. No criminal record. No connections to rival families. No debt beyond student loans and some credit card bills. She worked at a cafe, lived alone with a cat, and according to social media, had recently broken up with a boyfriend who worked in marketing and didn't deserve the angry paragraph she'd almost posted before deleting it. She's nobody, Vince had concluded. Civilian. No connections. Which made the photo even more fascinating. In Matteo's experience, beautiful women who wanted his attention tried much harder designer clothes, strategic appearances at his restaurants, friends of friends introducing them at carefully orchestrated events. They didn't accidentally text him half-naked photos and then panic apologize 7 times in a row. He'd spent the day in meetings, managing shipments, settling disputes, but his mind kept wandering back to Elena Rossi and her terrible luck with phone contacts. By 5 p.m., he'd made a decision that surprised even himself. he'd meet her. Not because he thought she was a threat, Vince's report had been thorough, but because something about her chaotic authenticity intrigued him in a way nothing had in years. Now, standing by the window as the elevator announced her arrival, Matteo composed his expression into something neutral. Not threatening, but not welcoming either. He heard her hesitant footsteps on the marble floor. "Mr. DeLuca?" Her voice was smaller than he'd expected. He turned. The photo hadn't done her justice. In person, Elena Rossi was striking dark eyes that were currently wide with fear, olive skin, full lips pressed together nervously. She'd dressed conservatively, probably on purpose, but the professional outfit couldn't hide the fact that she was beautiful. "Miss Rossi, thank you for coming. Did I have a choice?" He smiled slightly. "There's always a choice. You chose not to ignore my invitation. That shows wisdom. Or terror. Sometimes they're the same thing." He gestured to the seating area. "Please, sit." She moved like she was walking toward an execution, perching on the edge of an armchair as if ready to run at any moment. Her eyes darted around the penthouse, taking in the artwork, the furniture, the windows, probably looking for exits. Smart, he thought. Matteo sat across from her, deliberately casual. "Would you like something to drink? Wine? Water?" "No, thank you. I'd rather just... Why am I here?" "Direct. I appreciate that." He leaned back, studying her. "You sent me something interesting last night." Her face flushed bright red. "I'm so sorry. It was an accident. A stupid, mortifying accident. I don't even know how I got your number." He held up a hand, stopping her. "I believe you." You do?" The 7 panic messages were fairly convincing. Either you're genuinely embarrassed, or you're the worst intelligence operative in history. A surprised laugh escaped her, quickly stifled. "Definitely the first one. Then we have no problem." He watched her shoulders relax slightly. "However, I am curious. The photo was meant for someone else?" "My best friend. I was going to ask if it was too much, or..." She stopped, seemingly realizing she was over-explaining to a crime boss. "It doesn't matter. The point is, I deleted it from my phone, and I hope you'll do the same. Please." "Already done." Her surprise was evident. "Really?" "I'm not in the habit of keeping compromising photos of innocent women, Miss Rossi. Despite what you may have heard about me." "I haven't heard anything about you." The lie was obvious, but he let it pass. "Then let me be clear. You're not in danger from me. You're not in trouble. You made an honest mistake. And as far as I'm concerned, we're even." "We're even?" "You gave me the most entertainment I've had in months. Those panicked texts were genuinely amusing." She stared at him like he'd grown a second head. "You're joking." "I rarely joke, Miss Rossi. But when I do, I commit to it." Another involuntary smile crossed her face, this one lasting a fraction longer. "So that's it? You just wanted to meet me to say we're good?" "Not entirely." Matteo stood, walking to the bar and pouring himself a scotch. "I wanted to meet the woman brave enough or foolish enough to accidentally proposition a stranger and then apologize profusely instead of pretending it never happened. I'm not brave. I'm just bad with technology. Same result, sometimes." He took a sip of his drink. "Tell me, Elena, may I call you Elena?" She nodded, still looking confused. "Tell me, Elena, do you know who I am?" I have an idea. And yet you came anyway." "Your driver said I didn't have a choice. Vince says many things. You always have a choice." She stood then, some of her fear replaced by frustration. "Okay, I'm confused. You bring me here, you tell me we're even, you're being nice? What's happening right now?" Matteo found himself genuinely smiling. "What's happening is that you got my attention, Elena. Not many people do that." "I didn't mean to get your attention." "The best things never are intentional." He set down his glass. "I'd like to take you to dinner." Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. "I'm sorry. What?" "Dinner." You and me. Somewhere public if it makes you feel safer. Tomorrow night. You're asking me on a date? I'm asking you to dinner. Whether it's a date depends on whether you say yes. This is insane. You're you. And I'm a waitress who lives with a cat named after a salad ingredient. Milo, he said. Named after the Greek island where you studied for a semester in college. According to your social media, he's an orange tabby who hates everyone equally. The color drained from her face. You investigated me? Due diligence. Wouldn't you research someone before meeting them in a private penthouse? I didn't have time to research. I was too busy panicking. Mateo stepped closer, not threatening, just closer. Elena, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to be honest. Yes, I looked into your background. It's what I do. And what I found was someone who works hard, loves her family, takes care of her friends, and has spectacularly bad luck with technology. And that makes you want to have dinner with me? That makes me want to know more about you. She shook her head, but he could see her resolve wavering. This is a terrible idea. Probably. You're dangerous. Definitely. I should say no. You should, he agreed. But you won't. Her eyes met his, and for a moment, he saw the same woman from the photo, confident, bold, unafraid. 8 o'clock, pick somewhere nice, she said finally. And I'm ordering the most expensive thing on the menu. Mateo's smile was genuine this time. I wouldn't expect anything less. Elena left Mateo's penthouse in a daze, her mind spinning. Vince drove her home in the same silent efficiency as before, but this time, when he opened her door, he said something that made her pause. He hasn't smiled like that in 3 years. What? My boss. He hasn't genuinely smiled since his sister died. Until tonight. Before Elena could respond, Vince was back in the driver's seat, pulling away from the curb. She climbed the stairs to her apartment, unlocked the door, and immediately collapsed on her couch. Milo jumped up beside her, demanding attention. I have a date, she told the cat, with a literal mafia boss. What is my life? Her phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. Oh my God, are you alive? Elena typed back. Alive. He asked me to dinner. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. I'm sorry, what? Dinner. Tomorrow. I said yes. Elena, Marie Rossi, are you insane? Probably. But he was actually kind of charming. Charming? The man probably has bodies in his basement. He lives in a penthouse. No basement. Not the point. Elena couldn't explain it to Sophia because she barely understood it herself. Yes, Matteo De Luca was dangerous. Yes, he'd had her investigated. Yes. Every logical part of her brain was screaming that this was a bad idea. But there'd been something in his eyes when he smiled, something lonely and real and human beneath all that power and danger. And against all better judgment, she wanted to see it again. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a new number. For tomorrow? My personal line? Use it if you need anything. Or if you change your mind. M? Elena saved the number, her heart doing complicated things in her chest. She thought about the photo that started this whole mess, the impulsive decision, the terrible timing, the accidentally perfect mistake. What have I gotten myself into, Milo? The cat purred, completely unhelpful as always. Across the city, in his penthouse, Matteo De Luca poured himself another drink and stood by the window, looking out at the glittering chaos of New York. For the first time in 3 years since the night his younger sister was killed in crossfire meant for him, he felt something other than numbness and rage. He felt curious, interested, almost hopeful. Elena Rossi, with her accidental photos and her 7 panic messages and her terrible technology luck, had done something no one else had managed. She'd made him remember what it felt like to be human instead of just dangerous. Vince appeared in the doorway. Should I be concerned? About what? About you getting attached to a civilian. That's complicated in our world. Everything's complicated in our world, Matteo said. At least this might be interesting. Vince was quiet for a moment. She's not like the others. I know. If your enemies find out, they won't. Mateo's voice hardened. Make sure of it. Already on it, boss. After Vince left, Mateo pulled up Elena's photo again, not the accidental one, but the one Vince had included in his report. A candid shot from her social media, laughing with friends at a restaurant, her face bright with joy. He hadn't lied when he said he'd deleted the other photo. But this one he kept, because something told him Elena Rossi was about to change everything. And for the first time in years, change didn't terrify him. It intrigued him. Elena spent the entire next day convinced she'd imagined the whole thing. Except she hadn't, because at precisely 11 a.m., a delivery arrived at the cafe. A box wrapped in matte black paper with a single white ribbon. Sophia practically materialized beside her. Open it. Open it now. Inside was a camera, a professional-grade Nikon that probably cost more than Elena's rent for 3 months. And a note, written in bold, precise handwriting. Since you claim to be bad with technology, perhaps you need better equipment. Bring this tonight. M. He bought you a camera, Sophia whispered, eyes wide. A very expensive camera. I can't accept this. Elena stared at the equipment like it might explode. Are you insane? That's like $5,000 of camera. Exactly, I can't. Her phone buzzed. Before you panic and try to return it, I'm not buying your affection. I'm investing in your talent. Your social media shows real potential. Bring it tonight, 8 p.m. Address to follow. Elena typed back with shaking fingers. This is too much. His response was immediate. I've spent more on wine I didn't drink. It's a camera, not a marriage proposal. Relax. Despite everything, she laughed. The address came through an hour later, not a restaurant, but his penthouse again. When Elena arrived that evening, Vince was waiting in the lobby. But this time, his expression held something that might have been amusement. He's cooking, Vince said as they rode the elevator up. I'm sorry, what? He sent his private chef home. He's cooking dinner himself. Why would he do that? Vince's smile was subtle but genuine. You'd have to ask him. The elevator doors opened to the smell of garlic and herbs. Mateo stood in the open kitchen, sleeves rolled up, stirring something on the stove. He looked normal, domestic even. You came, he said, not looking up. You bought me a very expensive camera. I felt obligated. Good instincts. He glanced at her then, and something warm flickered in his expression. Did you bring it? She held up the camera bag. I still think this is insane. Most good things are. He gestured to the counter. Sit. Dinner's almost ready. And after, I have a proposition for you. Elena's stomach flipped. That sounds ominous. Only if you make it ominous. They ate first homemade pasta that was criminally good, paired with wine that probably cost more than her car. The conversation flowed easier than it should have. He asked about her photography, her family, her dreams. She asked about his businesses, carefully dancing around the obvious questions about what he really did. Finally, over espresso, he made his move. I want to hire you. Elena nearly choked on her coffee. Excuse me? As my personal photographer, I have events, business meetings, properties that need documentation. I need someone I can trust. He paused. Someone who isn't already in my world. You want me to work for you? Yes. Why? Because you're talented. Because you're honest. And because, he hesitated, just for a moment, I'd like an excuse to see you more often without it feeling like I'm stalking you. The honesty of it caught her off guard. I have a job. Keep it. This would be freelance. A few events a month, maybe some property shots. I'll pay you triple your cafe wages for a quarter of the hours. That's a lot of money. I have a lot of money, Elena. And I'd rather spend it on someone whose company I enjoy than on another overpriced consultant who'll tell me what I already know. She studied him, trying to find the catch. And if I say no? Then we finish our coffee, I have Vince drive you home, and we go back to being two people who shared an amusing story about a mistaken photo. He met her eyes. But I hope you'll say yes. Elena thought about her student loans, her credit card bills, the way her apartment's heating barely worked. The practical side of her brain was screaming, take the money. But the survival side whispered, this is how it starts. I need to think about it, she said finally. Matteo nodded, no disappointment in his expression. Fair enough. Take the weekend. Let me know Monday. As Vince drove her home later, Elena caught his eye in the rearview mirror. Is this real? She asked. The job offer? With my boss, everything is real. He doesn't play games, Miss Rossi. He either wants something or he doesn't. And right now, Vince's eyes held a warning. He wants you around. The question is whether you're smart enough to understand what that means. Elena swallowed hard. And what does it mean? It means you're under his protection now, whether you take the job or not. Which also means you're a target for anyone who wants to hurt him. The words hung heavy in the car. So I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. Welcome to his world, Miss Rossi. Elena said yes. Not immediately, she made him wait the full weekend like she'd promised, mostly to prove to herself that she still had some control over this situation. But Monday morning she texted him. When's the first event? His response came within seconds. Saturday. Black tie. I'll send a dress. I can buy my own dress. I know, but I enjoy buying you things. Humor me. The dress arrived Thursday, a stunning emerald green gown that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe combined. Sophia literally screamed when Elena showed her. You're living in a romance novel, Sophia declared. A very dangerous, very expensive romance novel. It's just a job. Babe, he bought you a dress. This is not just a job. Saturday evening, Elena stood in front of her mirror, barely recognizing herself. The dress fit perfectly, which meant he'd somehow figured out her exact measurements without asking. That should have been creepy, but instead it felt attentive. Vince arrived at 7 sharp. The event was at a high-end gallery in Chelsea. All marble floors, contemporary art, and people who looked like they'd never set foot in a place without valet parking. Elena clutched her camera like a lifeline. Matteo found her within 30 seconds of her arrival. You look, he stopped, and something unguarded crossed his face. Stunning. The dress does most of the work. The dress is just fabric, Elena. You make it stunning. Before she could respond, a man approached, older, silver-haired, with the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. Matteo, so good to see you. His gaze slid to Elena. And who is this lovely creature? Elena Rossi, my photographer. Matteo's hand settled on the small of her back, light but possessive. Elena, this is Vincent Calabrese. He owns several hotels in the city. Photographer, Vincent repeated, his tone suggesting he didn't believe that for a second. How artistic. Elena felt the insult under the compliment, but forced a smile. I like to capture honest moments. You'd be surprised what people reveal when they think no one's watching. Vincent's smile tightened. Matteo's hand pressed slightly firmer against her back, approval, or maybe warning. If you'll excuse us, Matteo said smoothly, guiding Elena away. Once they were out of earshot, she exhaled. Did I just offend someone important? You just made Vincent Calabrese, a man who once had someone's car crushed for parking in his spot, slightly uncomfortable. That's impressive. Is he going to have my car crushed? You don't have a car. Valid point. Matteo's smile was genuine. Just be careful. Not everyone here appreciates honesty the way I do. The rest of the evening was a masterclass in navigating danger disguised as sophistication. Elena photographed the event while watching Matteo work the room's smooth handshakes, quiet conversations in corners, the kind of business that never got written down. She was adjusting her lens when she accidentally bumped into a woman in a white dress, nearly spilling the woman's champagne. I'm so sorry. The woman's expression turned ice cold. Do you have any idea how much this dress costs? I know. I'm sorry. It was an accident. Accidents have consequences. The woman's voice dropped dangerously low. Especially for people who don't belong. Elena's mouth went dry. Then Matteo was there, appearing like he'd materialized from shadows. Isabella. His voice was silk over steel. I see you've met Elena. Isabella's expression shifted instantly, fear flickering behind the anger. Matteo, I didn't realize she was with you. Now you do. He didn't raise his voice, didn't change his pleasant expression. But something in his tone made Isabella take a step back. Elena is under my protection. I trust that won't be a problem. Of course not. My apologies. Isabella disappeared into the crowd. Elena's hands were shaking. What just happened? You just learned that my world has rules you don't know yet. He took her elbow gently, steering her toward a quieter corner. Are you okay? I almost got murdered over champagne. She wouldn't have murdered you. Threatened, maybe. But murder requires my permission in this city. He said it so casually that Elena laughed a slightly hysterical sound. That's not comforting. It should be. It means you're safe as long as you're with me. And if I'm not with you? His expression darkened. Then don't bump into women in expensive dresses. Monday morning, Elena was working her usual shift at Cafe Benedetto when the impossible happened. Matteo De Luca walked through the door. Without Vince, without security. Just him, in dark jeans and a casual button-down, looking like a regular person who definitely didn't run half the criminal enterprises in New York. The entire cafe went silent. Sophia froze mid-pour, creating a small cappuccino waterfall on the counter. Marco, their manager, looked like he might faint. And Mr. Peterson, their crankiest regular who complained about everything, suddenly decided his coffee was perfect and he should probably leave. Matteo walked straight to the counter, his eyes finding Elena's. I'd like a coffee, please. Elena's brain short-circuited. You want coffee? It is a cafe. That's typically what people come here for. Right. Yes. Coffee. What kind? Surprise me. You seem like someone who knows her way around espresso. Sophia elbowed her hard in the ribs, a clear signal to move. Elena fumbled with the espresso machine, her hands shaking slightly as she pulled a shot. She made him a cortado, simple, clean, the kind of drink that showed off the espresso without pretense. Matteo took a sip, and his eyebrows rose slightly. This is excellent. We have good coffee here. You have excellent coffee here. Why didn't you tell me you worked at the best cafe in Brooklyn? Because you already had me investigated. I assumed you knew. He smiled. Fair point. He took another sip, then glanced around the cafe. May I sit? Or is that going to cause problems? You being here is already causing problems, Elena said under her breath. But sure. Sit anywhere. He chose a small table by the window, and for the next hour, he just sat there, reading a newspaper, drinking coffee, looking perfectly normal. Except nothing about this was normal. Every customer who came in did a double take. Marco kept wiping down the same counter over and over, his eyes darting nervously toward Matteo. And Sophia kept texting Elena from 5 feet away. Why is he here? Is this romantic? I'm freaking out. Finally, during a lull, Elena walked over to his table. You're scaring my manager. I'm just having coffee. You don't just have coffee. People like you don't just show up at random cafes. People like me. He set down his newspaper. What kind of person am I, Elena? She lowered her voice. The kind who makes everyone nervous just by existing. Not you, though. I'm terrified of you. No, you're not. He leaned back, studying her. You're cautious. You're smart. But you're not terrified. If you were, you wouldn't have taken the job. You wouldn't have told Vincent Calabrese that you capture honest moments. And you certainly wouldn't be standing here telling me I'm scaring your manager. He had a point. Why are you really here? She asked. Because I wanted to see where you work. Because I wanted coffee. And because He paused, something genuine in his expression. Because I wanted to do something normal. Pretend for an hour that I'm just a guy who likes good espresso and interesting company. The honesty of it disarmed her completely. You're not just a guy, she said quietly. I know. But for 1 hour, I'd like to pretend. So Elena let him. She brought him a second coffee, then a third. She introduced him to Mrs. Chen, their regular who always ordered a latte with extra foam. She showed him the terrible painting on the back wall that the owner refused to take down. And for 1 hour, Matteo De Luca wasn't a mafia boss. He was just a man who laughed at bad art and left a $100 tip on a $15 coffee bill. 2 weeks later, Elena found herself in Matteo's home office at midnight, editing photos on her laptop while he worked through paperwork at his desk. This had become their routine. After events, she'd come back to edit while the images were fresh, and he'd work on whatever mysterious business kept him up at ungodly hours. They didn't always talk. Sometimes they just existed in comfortable silence, the kind that felt oddly intimate. Tonight, Elena was humming without realizing it some pop song that had been stuck in her head all day. She was slightly off-key, and she only noticed when Matteo's pen stopped moving. She looked up to find him watching her, an expression on his face she couldn't quite read. Sorry. Was I humming? Terribly, he said. But he was smiling. I'm a photographer, not a singer. Clearly. He set down his pen, leaning back in his chair. What song is that supposed to be? I don't actually know. It's been in my head for like 3 days and I can't remember the lyrics. So you're just humming random notes and hoping for the best. That's my entire approach to life, honestly. Matteo laughed, not a polite chuckle, but a real, genuine laugh that transformed his entire face. The sound was so unexpected that Elena just stared. What? He asked, still smiling. You laughed. Like, actually laughed. I do that sometimes. Not like that, you don't. I've seen you smile at events. This was different. From the doorway, Vince's voice cut through. Boss, we have... He stopped, taking in the scene. His eyes widened almost imperceptibly. I'll come back. Vince? But Vince was already gone. Matteo shook his head. He's never going to let me hear the end of that. End of what? I'll tell you when you're older. Elena threw a pen at him. He caught it without looking, which was annoyingly impressive. How do you do that? She asked. Years of people throwing things at me. Literally or metaphorically? Both. She returned to her editing, but the moment stuck with her. The way he'd laughed, the way Vince had looked surprised, the way all of this was starting to feel less like a job and more like something she couldn't quite name. Elena? She looked up. Matteo was watching her again, but this time his expression was serious. You know this can't be just a job forever, right? Her heart stuttered. What do you mean? I mean, he stood, walking around the desk toward her. I mean that I hired you because I wanted you close. But I keep you close because I enjoy your company. And somewhere between the accidental photo and the terrible humming, that stopped being professional curiosity and became something else. Elena's mouth went dry. Matteo, you don't have to say anything. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know where I stand. And where do you stand? He stopped in front of her chair, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. Dangerously close to breaking my own rules about getting attached to civilians. The word attached hung between them, heavy with implication. I should probably be smart and walk away, Elena whispered. You should. But I'm not going to. His smile was slow and devastating. I know. Okay, stop. Back up. He said what? Elena was having coffee with Sophia at their favorite diner, trying to process the previous night's conversation. She'd told Sophia the edited version that Matteo had admitted he liked having her around, but Sophia was reading between every single line. He basically admitted he has feelings for me, Elena said, pushing her pancakes around her plate. The mafia boss has feelings for you. Girl, this is literally a Wattpad story come to life. It's not a Wattpad story. It's my actual life, and I have no idea what I'm doing. Sophia leaned forward, her expression shifting from teasing to serious. Okay, real talk. How do you feel about him? Terrified. Besides, terrified? Elena thought about Matteo's laugh, the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't paying attention. How he'd shown up at the cafe just to feel normal for an hour. I think I like him, she admitted quietly. Which is insane because he's dangerous and powerful and could literally have someone disappeared with a phone call. But he's also kind and lonely, and he makes me laugh. And when I'm with him, I feel like I'm the only person in the room that matters. Sophia sat back, a knowing smile on her face. You sent him your body by accident. Now he wants your heart. That's really dramatic. Is it, though? Think about it. He could have any woman he wants. Probably has had dozens throw themselves at him. But you accidentally text him half naked, panic apologize 7 times, and somehow that's what gets his attention. You know why? Why? Because you're real. You didn't try to impress him. You didn't play games. You just were yourself. And that's what he fell for. Elena felt her chest tighten. I don't know if fell for is the right phrase. Fine. What would you call it? Interested? Curious? Babe, the man bought you a $5,000 camera, hired you so he'd have an excuse to see you, and showed up at your workplace just to feel normal around you. That's not curiosity. That's courtship. Courtship? Old school courtship. The kind where he's trying to show you he's serious without scaring you away. Elena dropped her head into her hands. What am I supposed to do with that? You decide if you're brave enough to fall for a man who lives in the shadows. Because that's what this is, Elena. He's giving you a choice. Walk away while you still can, or step into his world knowing it's dangerous. And if I choose wrong? Sophia reached across the table, squeezing her hand. Then at least you chose. That's more than most people ever get. The charity gala was held at a museum, all marble columns, champagne fountains, and people who measured their wealth in properties rather than paychecks. Elena had photographed dozens of Matteo's events by now, but this one felt different. The security was tighter. Vince's expression was harder, and Matteo himself seemed more on edge than usual. Stay close tonight, he'd told her in the car. And if anything feels wrong, find Vince immediately. You're scaring me. Good. Fear keeps you alert. Now, 2 hours into the event, Elena understood why. The guest list read like a who's who of New York's most powerful families, both legitimate and otherwise. Every handshake carried weight. Every conversation had subtext. She was photographing a group near the sculpture garden when she noticed something odd. 3 men, standing too close to one of the exits, not talking to anyone, just watching. Watching Matteo. Elena's instincts, the same ones that had kept her safe in sketchy neighborhoods and bad relationships, screamed warning. She caught Vince's eye across the room and tilted her head slightly toward the men. Vince's expression didn't change, but he moved. The next few minutes happened fast. One of the men started walking toward Matteo, hand moving inside his jacket. Elena didn't think. She just moved. She stepped directly into the man's path, camera raised like she was taking a photo, and accidentally bumped into him hard enough to knock him off balance. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she said loudly, drawing attention from everyone nearby. The man's hand came out of his jacket empty now, but she'd seen the handle of a gun. By then, Vince and 2 other security members had surrounded them. The man was escorted out for being intoxicated, along with his 2 friends. No scene, no drama. Just a quiet removal that most guests didn't even notice. But Matteo noticed. He found Elena in a quiet hallway 10 minutes later, his face unreadable. "That was incredibly stupid," he said, his voice tight. "You're welcome? You could have been hurt. So could you. There was a gun." "I know there was a gun, Elena. I saw it." His composure cracked, genuine fear breaking through. "You walked straight toward an armed man to protect me. Do you have any idea how reckless that was?" About as reckless as asking a civilian to photograph your events when you knew there'd be danger? They stared at each other, both breathing hard. Then Mateo closed the distance between them, his hands coming up to cup her face. "Don't do that again," he said softly. "Don't risk yourself for me. Then don't give me reasons to." They ended up back at his penthouse after the gala, neither quite ready to part ways after the adrenaline of the evening. Elena was reviewing the photos on her camera when Mateo poured them both drinks whiskey, this time, not wine. "Do you think he would have actually shot you?" she asked quietly. "Probably not there. Too many witnesses. But he would have tried something eventually. Who sent him? Does it matter?" "It matters if he's going to try again." Mateo sat beside her on the couch, closer than he usually allowed himself. "He won't try again. Vince is making sure of that as we speak." Elena decided not to ask what making sure meant. "You're shaking," Mateo observed. She looked down at her hands. He was right. Delayed reaction, I guess. Without warning, Mateo took her hand in his thumb tracing slow circles over her knuckles. The touch was gentle, almost reverent. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For tonight. For seeing the danger when I was distracted." "You're never distracted." "I am when you're in the room." The admission hung between them, honest and vulnerable. Elena turned her hand over, lacing her fingers through his. "This is a really bad idea, isn't it?" "Terrible idea." "You're dangerous." "I am." "Your life is dangerous." "It is." "I could get hurt." "You could." His grip on her hand tightened. "But I would burn down half this city before I let that happen." The intensity in his voice made her shiver not from fear, but from something else entirely. "Mateo, tell me to let go," he said, his eyes searching hers. "Tell me you want to go home and forget this. Tell me I'm crazy for thinking someone like you could want someone like me. Tell me anything, and I'll listen." Instead, Elena leaned forward and kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative, a question rather than a statement. But when Mateo responded, his hand sliding into her hair, the kiss deepened into something that felt like falling and flying at the same time. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Mateo rested his forehead against hers. "You have no idea how long I've wanted to do that," he whispered. "Since the photo? Since you walked into my penthouse looking terrified but refusing to let it show." Elena laughed softly. "I was definitely terrified." "I know. That's what made it brave." They stayed like that for a long moment, the city glittering through the windows behind them, two people from completely different worlds choosing each other despite every logical reason not to. "I'm not going to lie to you," Mateo said finally. "My world is dangerous. People who want to hurt me will try to use you. You'll have protection the best I can provide, but there are no guarantees." "I know. And you're still here. I'm still here." His smile was genuine and unguarded.
"Then I'm the luckiest dangerous man alive."
Elena kissed him again, softer this time, sealing whatever decision they'd both just made. Across the room, Vince appeared in the doorway, saw them, and quietly backed out again, a small smile on his usually stoic face. For better or worse, Elena Rossi had just stepped fully into Matteo De Luca's world, and neither of them was entirely sure if it was the beginning of something beautiful or something that would destroy them both. Maybe it would be both. The photo that was meant for her friend changed everything. Now Elena's caught between two worlds, and the man who could destroy her is the same one she's falling for. What happens when his enemies find out? Comment below if you think Elena made the right choice, and smash that subscribe. 3 weeks after their first kiss, Elena started noticing the car. A black sedan, different from Matteo's fleet, parked across from the cafe in the morning. The same car outside her apartment building at night. Once could be coincidence. Twice was suspicious. 3 times was a pattern. She mentioned it to Vince when he picked her up for an event. "What kind of car?" "Black sedan. Maybe a Toyota?" "I'm not great with car models." Vince's jaw tightened. "License plate?" She rattled it off. She'd memorized it on day 2 of noticing the car. Stay in public places until I tell you otherwise, Vince said, his tone leaving no room for argument. And I'm assigning someone to you. Assigning someone? Like a bodyguard? Like someone who makes sure you stay alive. Within an hour, a woman appeared at the cafe. She was maybe 30, athletic build, with sharp eyes that tracked every customer who walked through the door. She ordered a coffee, sat in the corner, and proceeded to read a book like she had all day. Sophia leaned close to Elena during a lull. Is that woman with the espresso watching you? Yes. Why is there a woman watching you? Because someone else was watching me first. Sophia's eyes went wide. This is officially too much mafia for me to handle before noon. That evening, Matteo showed up at her apartment unannounced. Elena opened the door to find him flanked by two men she didn't recognize, his expression darker than she'd ever seen it. Pack a bag, he said without preamble. Hello to you too. Elena, I'm serious. Pack a bag. You're staying at my place until we figure out who's following you. I'm not leaving my apartment because of some car. It's not just a car. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him while his men stayed in the hallway. The sedan belongs to the Calabrese family. Vincent's nephew has been watching you for 2 weeks. The name clicked. Vincent Calabrese, the man from the gallery who'd looked at her like she was an insect. Why would he be watching me? Matteo's expression was grim. Because you matter to me. Which makes you leverage. The word hung in the air, cold and calculating. So this is what you meant, Elena said slowly. When you said people would try to use me to hurt you. Yes. And the solution is, what? I become a prisoner in your penthouse? The solution is you stay somewhere I can protect you while Vince handles the Calabrese problem. Handles, Elena repeated. What does that mean, exactly? It means you don't need to worry about the details. Matteo, please. The word was quiet, almost desperate. Please just pack a bag and trust me. I can't. He stopped, his composure cracking slightly. I can't lose you because I was careless. The raw honesty in his voice made her chest ache. 20 minutes later, Elena was in Matteo's SUV with a duffel bag, Milo in a carrier, and a growing sense that her life had just shifted into something she couldn't control. Living with Matteo was different than Elena had imagined. Not the luxury part that she'd expected. The penthouse had a guest room that was bigger than her entire apartment, with a bed so comfortable she briefly considered never leaving it. No, the different part was how. Domestic it was. Matteo worked from home most days, his office door open so he could see when she moved through the apartment. They had breakfast together, usually just coffee and whatever pastries his assistant had delivered. He asked about her photography projects, she asked about his businesses, and he answered the parts that wouldn't incriminate her if questioned. It felt like playing house, except the house came with armed guards and bulletproof windows. 5 days in, Elena found Matteo on the balcony at 2 a.m., staring out at the city with a glass of whiskey. Can't sleep? She asked, wrapping her cardigan tighter against the cool air. Never could. Not since he stopped. Since your sister? He glanced at her, surprised. Vince told you? He mentioned it once. That you hadn't smiled in 3 years until you met me. She moved to stand beside him. Do you want to talk about it? For a long moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then? Her name was Gabriella. She was 22, bright, reckless, wanted nothing to do with the family business. His voice was carefully controlled. She was leaving a restaurant when a rival family decided to send me a message. Wrong place, wrong time. Matteo, I'm so sorry. I turned my back for 5 minutes. That's all it took. He took a sip of whiskey. After that, I promised myself I wouldn't let anyone get close enough to be used against me. No attachments. No vulnerabilities. What changed? He turned to face her fully. You. You and your accidental photo and your 7 panic messages. You made me curious. Then you made me laugh. Then you made me care. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. And now you're the biggest vulnerability I have. Elena's breath caught. Is that why you brought me here? To control your vulnerability? I brought you here because the thought of something happening to you makes me want to burn down the entire city until I find who's responsible. His hand cupped her cheek. You're not a vulnerability, Elena. You're the only thing that makes me feel human. And that's more dangerous than any gun. She leaned into his touch, her heart aching with the weight of his confession. I'm scared, she admitted. Good. So am I. What do we do? We figure it out. Together. He kissed her forehead gently. I've survived this long by being smarter than my enemies. I'm not going to stop now. 2 days later, everything fell apart. Elena was editing photos in Matteo's office when Vince burst in, his expression thunderous. Behind him were 2 tech specialists she'd seen around but never spoken to. We have a problem, Vince said, his eyes on Matteo but his tone suggesting Elena was part of that problem. What kind of problem? The kind where Miss Rossi's phone has been transmitting data to an outside server for the past 2 months. Elena's blood ran cold. What? One of the tech specialists stepped forward, tablet in hand. Someone installed spyware on your phone. It's been recording conversations, tracking your location, and copying your messages. That's impossible. I would have noticed. It's sophisticated software, the specialist continued. Looks like it was installed remotely through a corrupted link. Would have required access to your contacts and browsing history. Matteo's expression had gone completely blank, which Elena had learned was far more dangerous than anger. When was it installed? He asked quietly. Based on the metadata, approximately 8 weeks ago. 8 weeks. Right around the time she'd taken that photo. Right around the time she'd accidentally sent it to Matteo. Who has access to the server receiving the data? Matteo's voice was ice. The specialist hesitated, glancing at Vince. Tell me. It's registered to a law firm, Hartley and Associates. The primary user is, he pulled up a file, Jake Morrison. He's her ex-boyfriend? Matteo finished, his eyes sliding to Elena. The one you were trying to make jealous with the photo. Elena felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. No, Jake's just a marketing guy. He wouldn't. Jake Morrison is a junior associate at a law firm that represents the Calabrese family, Vince said, his tone flat. He's been feeding them information for months. The room spun. You're saying Jake planted malware on my phone? That the photo was she couldn't finish the sentence. The photo was bait, Matteo said softly, dangerously. You were supposed to send it to me, so they could track our connection, use you to get information. No. Elena stood, her hands shaking. No. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. But you did send it. Accidentally or not, you opened the door. Matteo, please, get out. The words were quiet but absolute. What? Get your things and get out of my apartment. Vince will drive you home. You can't seriously think I was in on this. I don't know what to think. His control finally snapped, voice rising. I don't know if you're innocent or if you're the best actress I've ever met. What I do know is that since you walked into my life, I've had a security breach. My rivals have been watching my every move, and people I care about are in danger. Tears burned Elena's eyes. I would never hurt you. You already have. His expression was carved from stone. You made me believe someone could be genuine in this world. That was my mistake, not yours. Matteo. Vince. Get her out of here. Vince moved forward, his expression apologetic but firm. Miss Rossi, please. Elena grabbed her bag with shaking hands, tears streaming down her face. Milo meowed from his carrier, sensing her distress. At the elevator, she turned back one last time. Matteo stood with his back to her, hands braced on his desk, the line of his shoulders rigid with anger and, if she wasn't mistaken, pain. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear I didn't know. He didn't respond. The elevator doors closed, and Elena's world shattered. The next 3 days were the worst of Elena's life. She called in sick to work, ignored Sophia's increasingly frantic texts, sat on her couch in the same pajamas for 72 hours, while Milo judged her from various perches around the apartment. Her phone, her traitorous, corrupted phone, sat on her coffee table like evidence at a crime scene. The tech specialist had wiped it clean before she left, but Elena couldn't bring herself to touch it. Jake had used her, planted malware on her phone, waited for an opportunity, and when she'd drunkenly decided to take that stupid photo, he'd probably celebrated his luck. And Mateo thought she was in on it. The worst part was understanding why. In his world, trust was currency, and she'd accidentally spent his without knowing the cost. On day 4, Sophia physically broke into her apartment. "You look terrible," Sophia announced, setting down bags from the deli. "Thanks. That's helpful. When was the last time you showered?" "I don't know. What day is it?" "Thursday. Babe, you need to tell me what happened. You've been radio silent for days. Mateo's people aren't coming into the cafe anymore, and there's a rumor going around that the Calabrese family is about to go to war with the DeLucas." Elena's head snapped up. "What? You haven't seen the news?" Sophia pulled out her phone, showing Elena a headline. "Brooklyn real estate moguls in escalating feud." The article was carefully worded, nothing explicit, but the subtext was clear. The Calabrese and DeLuca families were heading toward open conflict. "This is because of me," Elena whispered. "What happened?" So Elena told her everything. The spyware, Jake's betrayal, Mateo's accusation, the way he'd looked at her like she was just another person trying to use him. Sophia listened, her expression growing darker with each detail. That absolute, she bit off the curse. Jake did this? Jake, the mediocre boyfriend who couldn't figure out how to load a dishwasher? Apparently, Jake is a lot more competent than either of us realized. And Mateo thinks you were part of it. Can you blame him? From his perspective, I'm either the world's unluckiest woman or a really good spy. Sophia was quiet for a moment. Then, "You need to fix this." "How?" "He won't talk to me. I tried calling, his number's blocked. I went to his building, security turned me away." "Then you go bigger. You find proof that you're innocent. You figure out exactly what Jake did and why, and you bring Mateo evidence he can't ignore." "Sophia, I'm not a detective." "No, but you're a photographer. You see things other people don't, and you're in love with him, which means you're not going to just give up because it's hard." Elena opened her mouth to deny the love part, but the words stuck in her throat. Because Sophia was right. Somewhere between the accidental photo and the midnight editing sessions, between the cafe visit and the first kiss, Elena had fallen completely, irrevocably in love with Matteo DeLuca, and she'd be damned if she let Jake Morrison destroy that. Elena's plan was simple. Confront Jake, record the conversation, and get him to admit what he'd done. It was not a good plan. Sophia had pointed out approximately 17 ways it could go wrong, but it was the only plan Elena had. She'd tracked Jake down to his usual bar, a pretentious place in Manhattan where lawyers went to feel important. She'd dressed carefully, worn a wire okay. It was just her phone set to record in her pocket, but still, and prepared a speech about closure. What she hadn't prepared for was the black van that pulled up beside her 3 blocks from the bar, or the men who grabbed her before she could scream, or the cloth pressed over her face that smelled chemical and wrong and made the world go fuzzy at the edges. Her last conscious thought was, Mateo was right. I should have stayed away. When Elena woke up, her head was pounding and her wrists were zip-tied to a metal chair. The room was dark, concrete walls, a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. Very generic kidnapping location, which would have been funny if she wasn't actively terrified. She's awake. A man stepped into the light. Older, well-dressed, with cold eyes that held no mercy. Vincent Calabrese. "Miss Rossi, so glad you could join us." Elena's mouth was dry, her voice hoarse. "If you're trying to scare me, it's working." "Good. Fear means you're smart." He pulled up a chair, sitting backward on it like they were having a casual conversation. "Do you know why you're here?" "Because I'm leverage against Mateo." Partially, but mostly because you're a problem. See, we installed that spyware expecting useful information business deals, shipment routes, financial records. Instead, all we got was you and DeLuca having dinner, you and DeLuca kissing, you and DeLuca playing house like a couple of teenagers. Sorry to disappoint. His hand cracked across her face before she saw it coming. Pain exploded through her cheek. You're a complication, Vincent continued calmly. You've made Matteo DeLuca the most ruthless man in New York, soft, distracted. He broke protocol to keep you safe. That's information we can use. Elena tasted blood. He doesn't want me anymore. He kicked me out 3 days ago. We'll see. I've already sent him photos of you here. If he doesn't respond, then you're useless to us. And this gets much less pleasant. If he does respond, Vincent smiled, then we have our leverage. He stood, walking toward the door. Wait, what happens if he doesn't come? Vincent paused. Then you become a message. The world needs to remember what happens to people who get close to Matteo DeLuca. The door slammed shut, leaving Elena alone in the dark with her fear and the faint hope that maybe, just maybe, Matteo still cared enough to come. Matteo DeLuca had been called a lot of things in his life, but emotional had never been one of them. Until he opened the message with photos of Elena, bound to a chair, blood on her face, terror in her eyes. The phone in his hand cracked under the pressure of his grip. Boss, Vince started. Find her. Matteo's voice was deadly calm. Find her now, or I burn every Calabrese property to the ground, starting with Vincent's house while his family is inside. We're tracking the photo metadata. Give us 20 minutes. You have 10. What followed was the most concentrated display of violence Brooklyn had seen in a decade. Matteo didn't wait for strategy, didn't wait for backup. The moment Vince had a location, an abandoned warehouse in Red Hook, Matteo was moving. He brought 20 men. He didn't need them, but he wanted witnesses. The warehouse guards went down fast, shots fired with precision, no hesitation. Matteo walked through the building like death itself, his expression carved from ice and fury. When he found Vincent Calabrese in the back office, surrounded by his own guards, the older man actually smiled. Matteo, I knew you'd come. All that talk about staying cold, and here you are, running to save your... Matteo shot him in the knee. Vincent screamed, collapsing. Where is she? You're making a mistake. The second shot took Vincent's other knee. I'll ask one more time. Where is Elena? Basement, Vincent gasped. East side. But DeLuca, you need to understand. I understand perfectly. You took something that belongs to me. Matteo left Vincent bleeding on the floor and headed for the basement, Vince and his team clearing the way. The door was locked. Matteo shot out the lock and kicked it open. Elena was there, still tied to the chair, her eyes wide with shock. Matteo. He was across the room in 3 strides, dropping to his knees in front of her, his hands shaking as he cut through the zip ties. Are you hurt? What did they do to you? I'm okay. I'm okay. Her voice broke. I didn't think you'd come. Matteo cupped her face gently, his thumbs brushing away tears. Of course I came. Elena, He stopped, something raw and honest breaking through his usual control. You didn't send me a photo by mistake. You sent me a warning. What? The moment you entered my life, everything changed. That photo wasn't an accident, it was fate telling me to pay attention, to notice you before it was too late. His voice dropped to a whisper. I'm sorry I didn't trust you. I'm sorry I let fear make me cruel. But I swear to you, I will never make that mistake again. Elena let out a sob, pressing her forehead to his. I didn't know about the spyware. I swear I didn't know. I know, Dolcezza. Vince confirmed it. Jake Morrison is already being dealt with. Dealt with? You don't want to know the details. Probably true? Matteo pulled her to her feet, wrapping his jacket around her shoulders. Can you walk? I think so. He kept one arm around her waist as they moved through the warehouse, past the bodies of Vincent's guards, past Vincent himself who was being loaded into an ambulance under heavy police presence. Outside, the night air was cold and sharp, police sirens wailing in the distance. Elena looked up at Matteo, this man who'd just torn through an army to save her, and saw not a monster but someone who'd chosen her over everything else. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now?" Matteo's smile was soft, genuine. "Now I take you home. And I spend the rest of my life making sure nothing like this ever happens again." "Your home or my home?" "Our home," he corrected. "If you'll have me." Elena rose on her toes and kissed him, ignoring the pain in her wrists and face, ignoring the chaos around them, ignoring everything except the fact that she was safe and he was here, and somehow they'd survived. When they pulled apart, she smiled through her tears. "I'll have you. Accidentally and on purpose." Matteo laughed, that real, genuine laugh she'd first heard in his office, and pulled her close. "Best accident of my life," he murmured against her hair. "One photo, one mistake, and everything changed." Elena survived the worst, but can she survive falling in love with the most dangerous man in New York? Drop a team if you're screaming, and hit subscribe because the next chapter is going to blow your mind. Comment below, Team Matteo or Team Run Away while you still can. The meeting was set for neutral territory, an upscale restaurant that both the De Luca and Calabrese families had interests in. Switzerland, in miniature. Matteo had insisted Elena stay at the penthouse with triple security. Elena had insisted she was coming with him. "This is a negotiation between families," Matteo had argued. "It's dangerous. Everything about your life is dangerous. I'm done hiding." Elena had crossed her arms, channeling every ounce of stubbornness she possessed. "Besides, I'm the reason this whole thing started. I should be there when it ends." Vince had actually smiled at that. "She has a point, boss." Now Elena sat beside Matteo in a private dining room, facing what remained of the Calabrese leadership. Vincent was in the hospital, his sons running things in his absence. Marco Calabrese, the eldest, had his father's cold eyes but seemed marginally more reasonable. "Let's be clear about terms," Marco said, hands folded on the table. "My father overstepped. The kidnapping was unauthorized and reckless. For that, you have my apology." "Your apology means nothing," Matteo replied, his voice dangerously calm. "Your father took something that belongs to me. He hurt her. No apology fixes that. Then what do you want? Blood? Because we can go to war, De Luca, but that's expensive for everyone." Matteo leaned back, his expression unreadable. "I want Vincent out, retired, gone from New York. I want written assurance that Elena Rossi is untouchable. Her family, her friends, anyone she's ever spoken to gets the same protection I have." "That's a substantial ask. It's not a negotiation. Those are my terms." Marco's jaw tightened. "And if we refuse?" Elena surprised herself by speaking up. "Then you'll spend the rest of your lives looking over your shoulder. Because Matteo is scary when he's angry. But I promise you," she met Marco's eyes directly, "he's absolutely terrifying when he's protective." The room went silent. Then Marco actually laughed. "I see why he likes you." He turned back to Matteo. "Your terms are acceptable. Vincent retires to Florida. Miss Rossi gets full family protection. And we forget this entire mess happened." "One more thing," Matteo added. "Jake Morrison, the lawyer. What about him?" "He works for you. He installed spyware on Elena's phone without her knowledge. That stops today, or I'll handle it myself." Marco nodded slowly. "Morrison's already been dealt with. Fired, disbarred, and strongly encouraged to leave the state. He won't be a problem." "Good." They shook hands, a formal gesture that meant everything in their world. The war was over before it really began. As they left the restaurant, Elena exhaled slowly. "Did that actually work?" You were magnificent, Matteo said, his hand finding hers. Telling Marco I'm terrifying when I'm protective. Where did that come from? It's true. I watched you shoot a man in both knees for me. That's pretty terrifying. And yet you're still here. And yet I'm still here, she agreed. Except the deal wasn't as clean as they'd hoped. They were 2 blocks from the restaurant when the first shot shattered the SUV's rear window. Get down! Vince screamed from the driver's seat, swerving hard. Matteo threw himself over Elena, shielding her body with his own, as bullets punched through the reinforced glass. The SUV swerved again, tires squealing. It's Marco's younger brother, Vince shouted. Antonio, he's not honoring the deal. More gunfire. The SUV's tire exploded, sending them spinning. They crashed into a parked car with a sickening crunch of metal. Elena's ears rang. Blood trickled from a cut on her forehead. Matteo was already moving, gun in hand, checking her over frantically. Are you hurt? I'm fine. Are you? Stay down. He kicked open the door, returning fire. Vince was out too, coordinating with the security team in the follow car. Elena's hands shook as she reached for the dropped camera bag. The expensive camera Matteo had bought her was somehow still intact. Through the viewfinder, she could see Antonio Calabrese advancing with 3 armed men. And she could see the 4th man, flanking from the left, aiming directly at Matteo's blind spot. Matteo! She screamed. Left side! He turned, but not fast enough. Elena didn't think. She grabbed the heavy camera and threw it as hard as she could. The camera hit the gunman square in the face. He stumbled, shot going wild. Matteo took him down with 2 shots. The remaining attackers scattered when police sirens wailed in the distance. Antonio disappeared into an alley, but Vince was already on his phone, coordinating pursuit. Matteo turned to Elena, his eyes wide with something between shock and admiration. Did you just throw a $5,000 camera at an armed man? You bought me that camera. I figured you could buy another one. He laughed, actually laughed, and pulled her into his arms despite the chaos, despite the blood, despite the approaching sirens. You saved my life. We're even now. Not even close, Dolcezza. Not even close. 3 hours later, after police statements and Vince's extensive cleanup, Elena and Matteo finally made it back to the penthouse. They were both exhausted, covered in cuts and bruises, running on pure adrenaline. Matteo's security team had swept the entire building. Milo was fed and content. The world outside was handled. Inside, they were just 2 people trying to process what they'd survived. I'm making food, Matteo announced, heading for the kitchen. You're making food? After we were literally shot at. Especially after we were shot at. I need normalcy. He pulled out a pot, some pasta, ingredients Elena couldn't identify. Besides, I promised you I'd cook again. Elena hopped up on the counter, watching him move through the kitchen with surprising competence until he wasn't. Is the water supposed to boil over like that? No. No, it's not. Matteo grabbed the pot, cursed in Italian, and somehow managed to spill half the pasta water on the stove. Need help? I've got this under control. You're literally on fire right now. He looked down. The dish towel had caught flame. That's fine. Totally intentional. Elena grabbed the fire extinguisher, spraying the small fire while trying not to laugh. You run a criminal empire but can't make pasta? I have people for pasta. Apparently not tonight. By the time they actually sat down to eat, the pasta was simultaneously burnt and undercooked, the sauce was more salt than anything else, and they were both laughing so hard they could barely breathe. This is terrible, Elena managed between giggles. It's not terrible. It's rustic. It's a crime against Italian food. I've committed worse crimes. That set them off again. Laughter echoing through the penthouse until tears streamed down both their faces. When they finally calmed down, sitting on the kitchen floor surrounded by their disaster meal, Matteo reached over and tucked a strand of hair behind Elena's ear. I can't remember the last time I laughed like this, he said softly. Before your sister? Before everything. His thumb traced her cheekbone gently. You make me remember what it's like to be happy. Not just content or satisfied. Actually happy. Even when I'm mocking your cooking? Especially then. They kissed. Soft and slow. Tasting like burnt pasta and possibility. Later that night, Elena found Matteo on the balcony again, his thinking spot, she'd learned. She wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and joined him, the city lights twinkling below like fallen stars. Can't sleep? She asked. Too much on my mind. Want to talk about it? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, after Gabriella died, I told myself I was done. Done feeling. Done caring. Done being vulnerable. He turned to face her. I built walls so high, I forgot what the world looked like from the other side. And then I accidentally texted you a sexy photo. And then you accidentally broke down every single wall in one night. His smile was bittersweet. I never expected to feel anything again, Elena. I'd made peace with being empty. With being the cold, ruthless person everyone believed I was. You're not empty. I was. Until you. He took her hands in his. I'm sorry for pushing you away when I found out about the spyware. I was scared, terrified. Actually, that you were too good to be true. That I'd finally let someone in and they'd destroy me. I would never. I know that now. But fear makes us stupid. And I was very, very stupid. He raised her hands to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I didn't trust you. And I'm sorry I ever made you doubt how much you mean to me. Tears pricked Elena's eyes. You came for me. When I was taken, you came for me. That's all I needed to know. I would burn down the entire world to keep you safe. Let's maybe aim for less arson and more burnt pasta? He laughed, pulling her close. Deal. The next morning, Matteo made coffee while Elena fed Milo. It was domestic and sweet, and everything she'd never expected from falling for a mafia boss. But then he set down his mug, his expression turning serious. Elena, we need to talk. Her stomach dropped. Those words never meant anything good. Okay. Last night, you almost died. Again. Because of me. Because of my world. He ran a hand through his hair. And I realized that no matter how much security I provide, no matter how many deals I make, as long as you're with me, you'll be in danger. Matteo, let me finish. He moved closer, taking her hands. I can't live in a world where you're not in it. But I also can't live with myself if something happens to you because of me. So I'm giving you a choice, a real choice. With no pressure. What kind of choice? Freedom or my world? You can walk away. I'll make sure you're protected, financially supported, safe. You can go back to your life, your cafe, your dreams. No strings attached. Or, his voice softened, you can stay. Stay in my world, with all its danger and chaos. But if you stay, it has to be because you want to, not because you feel obligated. Elena studied his face, seeing the fear beneath the careful control. He was terrified she'd leave. Can I ask you something first? Anything. When you look at me, what do you see? He seemed surprised by the question. I see someone brave enough to throw a camera at a gunman. Someone who makes me laugh at burnt pasta. Someone who looked at the monster everyone fears and decided to stay anyway. That's who I am, Matteo. I'm not some fragile thing that needs to be protected from the world. I'm the woman who chose you, knowing exactly who and what you are, and I'm choosing you again right now. She squeezed his hands. But I have conditions. Relief flooded his expression. Name them. 1. I keep my job at the cafe. I like my life, my friends, my normalcy. Your world doesn't get to swallow all of that. Done. 2. You don't make decisions about my safety without consulting me. I'm not a child or a possession. I'm your partner, which means equal say. Agreed. 3. No more burnt pasta. We're hiring a cook. He actually laughed at that. I think I can manage that. And 4, she stepped closer, her voice dropping. You have to promise me something. What? Promise me that no matter how dangerous things get, no matter how scared you are, you won't push me away again. Because I can handle your enemies, Matteo. What I can't handle is you shutting me out. His arms came around her, holding her like she was precious and breakable and strong all at once. I promise, he whispered against her hair. Never again. Then I'm staying. In your world, on my terms. With burnt pasta and danger and you. Best decision you'll ever make. Second best, she corrected. The first was accidentally sending you that photo. The photography studio was small but perfect exposed brick walls, floor-to-ceiling windows letting in natural light, and enough space for both portrait sessions and her growing collection of urban photography. The sign above the door read Rossi Photography, and Elena still got a thrill every time she saw it. Sophia helped her set up for the grand opening, arranging flowers and making sure the champagne was properly chilled. I still can't believe you actually did it, Sophia said, adjusting a frame on the wall. Your own studio. Living the dream. Silent investor helped, Elena admitted, significantly. By silent investor, you mean your terrifying mafia boyfriend. Fiancé, Elena corrected, holding up her left hand where a simple but stunning diamond caught the light. As of 3 weeks ago, Sophia screamed. You're engaged and you're just telling me now? I wanted to tell you in person. And with the studio opening, everything's been crazy. Show me the ring. Show me right now. Elena laughed, extending her hand. The engagement had been perfectly Matteo, no grand gesture. Just the two of them in the penthouse kitchen, where they'd given up on cooking and ordered takeout. Him getting down on one knee and saying, I want to accidentally be with you for the rest of my life. She'd said yes before he'd even finished the question. The studio's opening was a success. Friends, family, former cafe customers, and a few of Matteo's business associates who were surprisingly supportive. Her sister Maria cried happy tears. Her parents were there, proud and slightly confused about how their daughter had ended up dating, now engaged, to one of New York's most powerful men. Matteo stayed in the background mostly, letting Elena have her moment, but she caught him watching her throughout the day, a soft smile on his face that few people ever got to see. Late in the evening, after most guests had left, Elena found him studying a photograph on her desk framed, slightly faded, the only photo in the entire studio that wasn't her professional work. It was the photo, the accidental one, the one that had started everything. You kept it, Matteo said, surprise in his voice. Of course I kept it. It's part of our story. It's a mistake. It's the best mistake I ever made. She moved beside him, looking at her own image younger, more innocent, completely unaware that one impulsive click would change her entire life. This photo brought me you. Why wouldn't I keep it? Matteo wrapped his arm around her waist, pulling her close. A year ago, I was standing in my penthouse, looking at this photo on my phone, thinking it was either a threat or the most interesting accident I'd encountered. And now? Now I know it was fate, disguised as bad technology and worse timing. Elena laughed, leaning into him. So what happens next in our story? Next, we get married. You continue building your empire. I continue running mine, and we figure out how to make a life together that's equal parts chaos and happiness. Sounds perfect. It will be, accidentally and on purpose. They stood there, surrounded by Elena's photography images of Brooklyn streets, candid portraits, the world as she saw it through her lens, and on her desk, that one special photo, a reminder that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected moments. A wrong number, a panicked apology, and two people who found each other in the most accidentally perfect way possible. From the doorway, Vince appeared, ever the professional. Boss, car's ready when you are. Thank you, Vince. As Elena locked up her studio, She paused to look back one more time. Her name on the door, her work on the walls, her future spread out before her like a photograph waiting to be taken. And beside her, the man who'd started as a mistake and become her everything. "Ready?" Matteo asked, offering his hand. Elena took it, lacing their fingers together. "Ready." They walked out into the New York night, her hand in his. Their story far from over, their future written in accidentally perfect moments. Because sometimes, the best love stories start with a message sent to the wrong person. And sometimes, the wrong person turns out to be exactly right. From accidental text to forever. Elena and Matteo's story proves that sometimes the biggest mistakes lead to the greatest love. Did this ending make you see our why? Drop a love in the comments. And if you loved this story, smash that subscribe button. We've got more Mafia romance coming your way. Share this with someone who needs to believe in accidentally perfect love. What was your favorite moment? Comment below. Was it the burnt pasta? The camera throw? The proposal? Let me know. 6 months after the wedding, Matteo walked into the penthouse to find Elena on the couch, laptop open, laughing at something on her screen. "What's so funny?" She turned the laptop to show him. It was her old phone's message history. She'd backed it up before the tech team wiped it. There, preserved for eternity, were her 7 panicked messages to him from that first night. "Oh my God. Wrong person. I am so sorry. I was going through old files for the studio's 1-year anniversary post," she explained. "Found these and realized we should probably save them. For posterity." Matteo sat beside her, reading his own response. "Interesting choice of lighting." "I was so terrified," Elena said, smiling at the memory. "I thought you were going to have me killed. I was so intrigued. I thought you were either the bravest or stupidest person I'd ever met. Can't it be both?" He kissed her temple. "It's definitely both." Elena's phone buzzed with a new message from Sophia. "Tell your husband the cafe misses him. He hasn't pretended to be normal in weeks." "Sophia wants you to visit," Elena relayed. "I'll stop by tomorrow. I do miss their coffee." "You miss pretending to be a regular person for an hour." "That too." They sat in comfortable silence. Elena's laptop still showing those old messages, the ones that had accidentally changed everything. "You know what I just realized?" Elena said. "What?" "We never did figure out how you ended up in my contacts as M. DeLuca. I still don't remember adding you." Matteo was quiet for a beat too long. "Matteo? Do you remember about 13 months ago, you catered coffee for a business event? My property downtown?" "Vaguely. There were so many people. I was there. I saw you arguing with your manager about proper espresso technique. You were so passionate about coffee, I thought it was charming. So I asked someone to get your contact information for potential future business." Elena stared at him. "You're telling me you put your number in my phone?" "I may have. So the accidental text wasn't entirely accidental?" "The text was absolutely accidental. You were supposed to reach out professionally about catering. Instead, you sent me..." He grinned. "Well, you know what you sent me. Matteo DeLuca? You sneaky." He silenced her with a kiss, laughing against her mouth. "So really," he said when they pulled apart, "you could say I accidentally planned the whole thing. That makes no sense." "Welcome to our relationship." Elena shook her head, but she was smiling. "So this entire time, our accidentally perfect love story was actually you putting your number in my phone and hoping I'd call? And you sending me the most memorable wrong number text in history. I'd say we both contributed to the accident. You're impossible. And you're stuck with me, accidentally and on purpose. Forever." "Forever," Elena agreed, kissing him again. Outside the penthouse windows, New York glittered with possibility, a city full of accidents waiting to become perfect. Of wrong numbers that might be exactly right, of moments that change everything with one impulsive click. And in the penthouse, 2 people who'd found each other in the most accidentally perfect way continued writing their story, One photograph, one burnt pasta dinner, one shared laugh at a time, because sometimes the best things in life aren't planned. They're accidentally perfect.